After a year of annoying pronunciations from iPhone XR to, well, iPhone XR, we have a clearer nomenclature this time, at least for this one. This is the iPhone 11, the new entry-level iPhone, and like all iPhones, this one is pretty damn well built. If you put the iPhone XR and 11 side by side, it's only the cameras and the Apple branding that will help you tell them apart. The rest of the phone is indistinguishable even in the hand. The weight feels the same, the thickness, the bezel situation up front, the body size, all of it is the same. And why not? The XR was one of the most selling iPhones ever, and as programmers say, when a code works, the first thing you do is you do not touch it. The ergonomics on the iPhone 11 is again very similar to the XR, and it's not necessarily something that I'm a big fan of. The matte sides are slightly slippery, at least for my skin texture, and that wider frame means that at least I need a case to make sure that I feel secure carrying it around. But then we come to those little design elements like the whole camera bump that has been raised pretty much from the same glass and has that matte finish. It's just things that we've rarely seen from anyone else, and we expect Apple to do this. Now, in a nutshell, I think the overall design on the iPhone 11 is among the best in town, and the few new colors available make it the iPhone with the most options, at least when it comes to the looks. This was the part that did disappoint me a little bit as a user, because I could even take the thicker bezels and the lower resolution, but it not having at least an AMOLED display at this price does bug me. In fact, the only reason that stops me from picking one up for myself is the same. Now, like my pet peeve of having an AMOLED display, you guys might also want different things. Maybe a higher resolution display if not an AMOLED one, maybe thinner bezels. But the truth of the matter is that Apple hasn't made any efforts, at least on the display front, to close not even one of those gaps. Now, is the display that bad? Well, not really. In fact, it's the highest quality LCD display that you can find out there. Brightness is blindingly high. The colors look very appealing. The resolution is not something you'll notice right away, unless of course you keep it right next to a higher resolution panel, maybe the 11 Pro, the 11 Pro Max. The panel, while standalone, looks great. When you put it next to the 11 Pro, as I said, you start to see the real difference. The quality difference though is quite reflected in the price too. The iPhone XR and 11 have great displays, and the fact that XR sold so much is a testament that people like what they see. That being said, I think Apple should have either provided a higher resolution panel or at least an AMOLED panel, even if it was the same resolution. Now, the new iOS 13 inside the iPhone 11 is quite the fun experience. I have not been a long time iOS user and had used Android phones for the most part of my life. Then I switched to a Mac as my main machine, and iOS just became a natural transition. The sync just pulled me in. Now, for me, iOS has been on and off, and from what I can tell you, the experience is very functional. I've talked about this in a few other reviews as well, where today manufacturers stuff their softwares with so many features that people get overwhelmed and at times get stuck in the weeds and end up doing things they didn't intend initially. iOS gives me a more straightforward design where I can get my work done through the shortest path possible, which is why I think iOS is very well suited for the working class or for people who don't have a lot of time to fiddle around with their phones, maybe customize their phones a lot. Now, talking about customization, like the previous macOS, we have dark mode on iOS 13 as well, and iOS does it well. Also, thanks to the good quality of the LCD panel, it looks pretty good on the iPhone 11 too. Now, iOS 13 also gets dark mode, and Apple does it well. Now, while the 11 Pro and 11 Pro Max's AMOLED displays will make that dark mode look very, very good, the good quality LCD panel on the iPhone 11 also makes sure that it looks good here as well. Now, Apple doesn't do things first, they just do it better. Same goes for this dark mode, where the first party apps and newsfeed, everything goes black and has been tastefully designed. The new Photos app is also quite fun. It even gives you these smart suggestions for your photos, edits that can be made, and I actually found them quite useful. Then you have the photo editing capabilities, of course, in the Photos app that's better and more versatile than ever. And now I feel like I don't even need a third-party app for most of my edits. And to add to that, it's not just photos but videos too that can be edited on the iPhone 11. Another little touch I appreciate a lot is the swipe keyboard, which always used to bug me when I used to shift from an Android to an iOS phone. And this time, of course, swipe keyboard is there. Now, apparently, Face ID has become faster on the iPhone 11, or at least that's what Apple claims. Now, we took this to the test, and from what you can see on the screens, it doesn't really look very different. It looks pretty similar. Now, I'm sure Apple has worked on it and there might be a very tiny difference on the iPhone 11, but I don't think that's going to matter to you as a user. The software experience on the iPhone 11 is like the more expensive iPhone, so you don't have to compromise there. But that also means that for people who have the 10R and are looking to pick one up over this, the software is not going to be the place where you'll find a difference. Now, every year during the Apple keynote, while the performance part doesn't get the highest cheer, probably because it's too complex to understand, I think this is the greatest thing that Apple does. Their chipsets are impossibly powerful and they're always an year or two ahead of their closest competition and produce results very few can boast of. The A13 Bionic improves over an already ultra powerful A12 Bionic and produces 20% more power and faster performance and consumes 15% less power. It's built on a 7nm process just like the A12 Bionic, and actually Apple has been able to stuff a lot more transistors on this, of course making it more powerful. Apple also claims to have the fastest GPU on a mobile chipset ever, and I kind of agree with them. If there's one thing on the iPhone 11 that I do not doubt for a second and hasn't failed me ever, is the performance. It is top notch. The A13 Bionic honestly flies through games and even graphic intensive titles. There are dedicated gaming phones that gave me less pleasure when playing a game compared to the iPhone 11. Add to that the crazy storage speeds that iPhone's flash storage gives it. It gives it that extra punch and keeps things running smoothly for longer. The new neural engines also enable deep fusion, which makes the photos even better by understanding patterns and recreating even some lost ones. Now the bigger question is, how powerful is the A13 Bionic compared to the A12 Bionic? Now from a user perspective, I don't really think you're gonna feel a big difference in performance between the two phones because most other parts of the phone are the same. So you're gonna experience pretty similar performance. Now you'll not be able to enjoy the deep fusion capabilities that the iPhone 11 has because of their A13 Bionic, and you might get a few more minutes of battery life because of the A13 being slightly more power efficient, but I don't think that difference is that big in performance, and unless you exactly want what the iPhone 11 is providing you, I don't think there's going to be a big difference here. The cameras. Oh, the cameras. The iPhone XR already had an amazing back camera, but the single camera setup felt a little out of trend. The dual camera setup on the iPhone 11 feels enough for most people with the addition of a new ultra wide angle camera. And I'm in love with these cameras. Other than the Pixel phones and maybe the Samsung Note 10 Plus in a few situations, I was always looking for something extra in the pictures that I took. They were either too saturated or soft in areas or didn't look crisp enough, or look too crisp even in a few situations. The iPhone 11 has hit the sweet spot for me, and with the recent camera comparisons with the iPhone XR, the 70 and even the OnePlus 70 Pro, it's quite clear just how good the iPhone 11 is. Daylight shots, the natural details in portraits, the ultra wide angle camera with great parity between all three cameras, the two back cameras and the front camera. The switch between the standard and the wide angle camera is also pretty seamless. If you try to do it very slowly, then you might see the lens switching, but in one smooth motion, it looks cool and seamless. Then we have the new night mode, and of all night modes that I've used, this one is the best. This night mode works like magic because while other Android phones suggest you to switch to the mode, the iPhone 11 automatically turns to it and gives you the option to change exposure times depending on how stable the phone is. So all this decision making is being done by the phone. Also talking about deep fusion, you'll see the big difference here where the patterns are being recreated by deep fusion. So patterns that were lost, maybe because of the lighting, maybe because of how the camera performed in that situation, maybe because of the low light, or maybe because of how the objects were placed, you might lose out on a few details. Now deep fusion actually understands the details and even recreates them. This is truly a phenomenal change, and you can see that in these pictures here. Now, this is something that I'm going to say, at least because of my camera experience. Compared to the iPhone XR, the iPhone 11 seems smarter. Now, the deep fusion technology alone is not the reason for it. The way it turns to night mode, the way it decides to show what's there out in the frame, if it needs to show you the wide angle preview, if it does not need to show you that, all of this is actually decision making being done inside the phone to give you a more seamless experience. And I think Apple has done some phenomenal work here under the hood, and the fact that they've put effort in adding those neural engines means that this is just the beginning, and we're going to see smarter smartphones available in the future. Now, when the iPhone XR launched along with the XS and the XS Max, the XR had the best battery life of the three phones. The iPhone 11 is no different and is even better than the XR because of the more power efficient chipset inside the iPhone 11. The iPhone XR was one of my favorite phones, even more so than the XS Max, because the XR was not just smaller and more manageable, it also had the best battery life because of the lower resolution display. Now with the iPhone 11 also, I was always able to get through a full day of usage without needing to charge it. But yes, it did need a top up before the day ends, and on days with heavy usage, I would have to plug it by evening. Coming to charging times as well, just like the iPhone XR, inside the box you get only a 5-watt charger. Which is something, again, I hope Apple does this. Apple should be able to give you a fast charger at this price. Now, of course, we all know that Apple dropped $50 on their phones, but I think a fast charger for that extra $50 is something that everyone is willing to pay for. So if we can do that, then that would be a good deal as well, because with that 5-watt charger, this thing took around 3 hours 15 minutes to 3 hours 20 minutes to charge from 0 to 100. That's charging times that phones today under 10,000 don't have. So I think for this experience, this premium smartphone, at least you should have a 10-watt charger inside the box, if not a 15-watt one. It does come with wireless charging as well, so if you have that option, you can do that as well. So between the 11 Pro and the 11 Pro doesn't have as good a battery life as this one, but does come with an 18-watt charger. This one, while has a better battery life, a much better battery life, comes with only a 5-watt charger. So when it comes to the battery performance, it's quite balanced on the 11 Pro and this one. But between the 11 and the XR, there's not a big difference in battery performance as well. So finally, coming to the conclusion, is the iPhone 11 a great smartphone? Well, of course it is. Now with this smartphone, I've had a phenomenal experience. It's one of the most fun that I've had reviewing a smartphone, also because I love this color a lot. But then the iOS experience that I've had, the performance has been spotless. The battery experience was something that I liked a lot. And then the cameras. I've taken so many pictures with this phone, it's not even funny. And that happens with me always when I have a good camera phone. And the iPhone 11 did that to me. I've taken so many pictures. The camera quality that you get, the parity between the standard lens and the wide angle camera, the selfie camera, more importantly, the video capabilities, the ability to shoot 4K 60 FPS with stabilization, not just with the back camera, but also with the front camera. I think things like this are unbeatable on the iPhone 11. Now, if you're talking about an Android phone closer to this, more closer than ever, is the OnePlus 7 Pro, is the OnePlus 7T Pro now. Now with the 7T Pro, the only area where I think it has the biggest advantage is the display design, because that is a Quad HD display. It is AMOLED, it is 90 Hz, and it is almost bezel-less. When I actually took the 7T Pro in my hand, and I've been using this for a long time, it just felt like there were no bezels on it. So that's how much a difference comes in when you have thicker bezels on this. Apart from that, I think the iPhone 11 is a better device in every other sense. Now for someone who's deciding between the iPhone 11 and the XR, so if you're someone who already has the XR, I don't think there's any point upgrading to the 11. But if you're someone who's right now choosing between the 11 and the XR, you feel like the XR is actually at a good deal, but the 11 is a newer phone, well, I have a few points for you. Let me help you make your decision easier. I'll tell you the things that are the same. So the display experience is going to be pretty much the same. The ergonomics, the size of the phone, the battery life is also going to be pretty much the same. Even the performance, although this is a newer chipset, the performance is not massively different, and you're not really going to feel a big difference when you use that on a daily basis, even if you do that side by side. So what is really the difference? First difference is of course the colors, and that is a big difference. If you want these newer colors, then you have no other option but to buy the iPhone 11. But when it comes to cameras, the iPhone 11 is better than the iPhone XR in each and every sense. When it comes to videos, when it comes to pictures, because it's not just a better standard camera, it's also a new wide angle camera which is as good, and a new and improved selfie camera as well. So with the camera experience, the iPhone 11 is truly better. And if you feel like you're willing to spend that extra bucks just to get that wide angle camera and that better selfie camera, then please do spend the money on it. Otherwise, the iPhone XR is also a very good smartphone to buy. If you're getting the XR at a good deal, then you shouldn't really be worried that the 11 is already out there, because the XR is also a great smartphone. And with that, I leave you to it. Thank you so much for watching. This was my review of the iPhone 11.